What's up, guys? It's Millie Peartree here in the fabulous Food 52 kitchen. Today, I'm taking you behind the recipe, and we're gonna explore the history of one of my favorite recipes, a Jamaican bully beef. To start our Jamaican bully beef recipe, we're gonna start with a little veggies. I have some onions, I have some green bell peppers, and because I love it hot, a Scotch bonnet pepper. The first time I had Jamaican bully beef was in Jamaica, and they actually serve it for breakfast with like some boiled plantains and some bammy. And I just love recipes that are just so flavorful and good. And it has ingredients that are accessible here in the United States. And I was like, why not recreate it? I have friends that made a different variation of this recipe, like from Trinidadian and Antiguan descent, and they'll eat it with some corn and some white rice. So it's a very versatile dish. So as you guys know, I love to find out about new things in recipes and the history behind it. So I talked to my really good friend, Tonya Hopkins, and she is a food historian, and she told me all the things we need to know about Jamaican bully beef.
Bully beef basically is a term that's used mostly throughout the British Commonwealth, including the UK, England, Jamaica, New Zealand, Australia. And the term bully is said to have been derived from the French term bouilli, but it's mostly a British term that gets adopted. The Jamaican bully beef becomes, especially in more recent times, the recipe that you're going to find when you Google it. Why? Jamaicans take it to a whole nother level, adding, flavor, different layers, adding the onion and the garlic and the peppers. Peppers, all those things originate in the New World, in the Americas. It was transformed by these island cooks into something that's a really satisfying dinner. It's directly connected to the diaspora, the British diaspora in this case, and how Jamaica's historic connection to England.
So now we have all of our vegetables chopped. I'm using extra virgin olive oil. If you have avocado, vegetable oil, feel free to use it. We have it on like a medium heat. I have our onions, green bell pepper, and I have our extremely hot, with the seeds in, Scotch bonnet pepper. We're just gonna saute this until it's nice and soft, about 2 or 3 minutes. So often when we saute vegetables, we'll add some salt in it to sweat it out, but we can lower the heat a little bit. The process will still be the same. I don't wanna add any salt to this because we're using a canned corned beef and it's really salty. So I'm gonna proceed on the side of caution right now and not add any salt to this. If you feel the need to, just a little bit to release some of the moisture in this, but we'll turn the heat down, stir it up, it'll be fine. So as you see, we sauteed our peppers and onions in Scotch bonnet. You see how it's translucent? You can almost see through the onions and it's nice and tender. That's the consistency you're looking for. Again, if you like a crispier vegetable, feel free to pull back on the time. But in this case, I want it nice and mellow and smooth. And I want to be able to taste the sweetness from the onions and a slight bite from the green bell pepper. And I have a mess of garlic. I love fresh garlic. We're gonna get it into our pan and we're gonna saute it until it's nice and fragrant. About 30 seconds or so, but our nose will let us know when it's done. So now that my nose told me our garlic is done, I have some fresh thyme. Again, a lot of Caribbean recipes have fresh thyme in it. We do not have to chop it. We're just gonna pull it backwards off of the stem. It falls right off. Okay, so now that we have our peppers, our onions, and all of our wonderful aromatics in there, let's talk about our canned corned beef. So there's many brands of this. There's low sodium. We have a regular corned beef here. It's very salty. Some people choose to boil it, but I find like it has good flavor. And corned beef was used in this recipe during wars, and it was for rationing of meat. And often some proteins weren't readily available. So that's why we always had some cans of protein around. But again, you can use fresh corned beef if you have it, and you could substitute and use some ground beef if you want it. But in this version, the canned corned beef is gonna be a way to feed a lot of people on a small budget. Let's go hear what Tonya had to say about this ingredient.
It very much originates with the canned version of the corned beef, which was one of the largest food rations for the British soldiers from the Boer War all the way up into World War II. It's this kind of gelatinous minced beef, not the best quality, salted, flavored, seasoned, but like that's it, right? It's a protein, right? And it's inexpensive. It can be stored. You can have it on the ready. You can be improvisational with it. So the Jamaican cooks the same way that North American and other Caribbean cooks all throughout the Americas, you know, had a overarching, you know, flair for taking regular basic things and turning them into delicacies, really.
So now we have our canned corned beef. Just gonna break it up a little bit. I'll break it up some more in the pan. So canned corned beef was a functional ingredient, and it was used when they were rationing proteins. So, I mean, listen, this is just one of those things, like, it's readily available, and I like the fact that people still make this recipe to this day. So I'm gonna break down the meat. So Tonya also mentioned that this dish came on the scene in the late 1800s. I mean, who would have known that there was so much history around a canned product? However, if you have some corned beef left over, I would totally repurpose it. I have a really good friend, and listen, he tells me about all of the times he ate such a thing in jail. You know, they didn't have fresh protein, and when they get their commissary, when they cook things up, canned corned beef was one of them. Here we have some browning seasoning. And essentially what brown seasoning is burnt sugar. It's not burnt in the sense of it tastes burnt, but it's water and sugar, and it's caramelized down. This is gonna add another level of flavor to our bully beef, as well as some color. So we added our browning, and now we're gonna add some tomatoes. So right here, I'm gonna go in for a little taste. Make sure we're on point with our seasonings. And this is the reason why we reserve the salt to the very end, because it is a salty product, but it does need a little bit more salt and pepper to it. So now I'm gonna add a little bit, just to bring home all of the flavors. Salt and pepper, beautiful. And now we're gonna finish with some scallions. So you know when this dish is done, when the corned beef is heated all the way through. So before we go to the plate, let's check out my conversation one more time with my friend Tonya. Would you say, is there any specific occasion that we would serve this dish for?
Well, historically speaking, it's traditionally a dish made for breakfast. And maybe that's because, you know, you just pop that can open, get stuff. Maybe, you know, maybe because it's like the efficiency of it, the quickness of it. There are people who love, you know, what are traditionally breakfast foods for dinner. So the real answer is eat it when you feel like eating it. Eat it when you are craving it. Serve it. You know, if you're having friends and you want to make this dish, like, you decide what day part makes sense. You know, maybe it's a good brunch dish. I don't know. I'm just telling you, historically speaking, I am told that it is a breakfast food, and also that during hurricane season, it became popular. If you're in and you're buckled down and you got your pantry, there's probably some bully beef up in there, and you'd be like, okay, we're gonna have this because it's here, right?
Exactly. Tonya mentioned historically, beef bully is served for breakfast with boiled plantains and maybe some bammy, but it's a little later in the day, so I'm gonna have mine traditionally with the boiled plantain, but a little rice, because I'm more of a brunch girl. And I like to finish all of my dishes with some more fresh green onions. And here you have it, Jamaican bully beef with steamed rice and boiled plantains. Let's get into my favorite part, the taste. Oh, that's really good. Let me get one more in here. You have the sweetness from the tomato and the browning seasoning. So you taste the warmth and the spice from the Scotch bonnet, and the smoothness and the saltiness from the beef. It is such a good meal, and it comes together in a matter of minutes. I think that you guys should definitely try this, whether for breakfast, lunch, or midnight snack. This will be your go-to pantry ingredient meal. Ooh, that's warm. It's not spicy, it's warm, like, ooh. So you drink a little cocktail and that first sip.